What's going on, everybody? We have a lot of people that come to us and talk to us about what diet, how do I do this diet, what diet will be best for me, and today we're going to be answering that age-old question. Welcome to Two Coaches. Let's get into it. Two Coaches. That was perfect. Flawless execution. Awesome, guys. Welcome to the show. So today we are going to be talking about what diet is best. And before we get into it, we really got to address the elephant in the room, which is just what the word diet actually means. You know? Does that drive you crazy?
I think this far into the game, like the fitness game, it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. So when everyone says diet, this is just a pet peeve of mine. Your diet is just what you're eating. You've been on a diet since literally the day you were born. It is just what you're eating. It doesn't matter if you're eating nothing but boiled chicken and brown rice every single day, or if you are eating like, I don't know, Baconators, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Baconators.
Delicious. I mean, delicious, nutritious Baconators. It doesn't matter. You're on a diet no matter what you're eating, because a diet just means what you are eating. When people talk about diets, what they're really talking about are nutrition plans, which are different strategic ways of eating. And oh my God, there are a lot of them.
I think even with those, like even with nutrition plans, I've had like clients or people at the gym bring a nutrition plan from a template or otherwise, and you're like, well, yeah, this isn't for you though.
Right.
You know, they're like, hey, I'm going to do this. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and that's what it boils down to is
but
finding.
They don't really want to know what you want to think. They don't really want to know what you think.
They're looking for validation.
Yeah.
They just want you to tell them this is going to be great for you. Everything's going to go swimmingly.
Yeah.
Whereas you're looking at somebody who literally has a slice of cake every single night for dinner, and they're like, what do you think of this keto thing? And you're like, oh, bro, that's not going to go well. So when we're talking about what diet is best for you, we've actually both been on quite a bit of nutrition plans ourselves. So we thought it'd be cool if we just talked about the different ones that we have personally experienced, and talk about some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the things that allowed us to stay on it really well or not. Now, before we get into it, though, we do need to point out we are not dietitians.
Nope.
We are not nutritionists. We are coaches. We do have some specializations that allow us to help guide people through their nutrition process, through macros and stuff, but it's never to do anything in the realm of a dietitian or a nutritionist. So we're going to be talking about what we've been through, our personal experiences, and where we go from there.
My sister-in-law's a dietitian.
Is that right?
So
what's her full name? I'm just kidding.
Where does she work? What is her telephone number?
All right, so Michael, you want to kick us off, man? Talking about the macro diet.
Macros. So I mean, that's probably the first legitimate diet that I ever was like that. I'm going to do that. Like I'm going to do this, and I was already doing training, but that was like the first diet, quote unquote,
right? That
I was like, I'm gonna apply this to this fitness challenge. I think everything else before that fitness challenge, martial arts, whatever I was doing before, it wasn't guided by any specifics. It was just, and I use this word super lightly, but common sense,
right? Things,
because that's easier said than done. Like everybody's upbringing is different. I think.
Right. Talking
to the members, I catch myself over. I've caught myself over the years explaining to them what I have done over the time, and I'm like, I got to slow down because somebody might latch on to one thing and be like, that's what he lost weight with. Got it. Like, yeah, I've lost plenty of weight. I've gained plenty of weight over the years, but the macros was scientifically like the easiest.
Right. What's the most inclusive?
Yeah. And I even then telling people it's the easiest. I'm like, if you want legit stats and results you just do your macros, follow the trends, and you'll get close. If you need legitimate numbers, you can get with a dietitian or nutritionist or maybe a know-it-all personal trainer who likes to delve into it. But it takes a lot of tailoring, if you will.
Right. What is a macro diet?
So when I was introduced to it, it's funny too because like learning it and taking your tests and getting your certs done, you're like, it's like, and everybody's different. So I don't know how you were in school, but I was like, got it. Number 12 is C.
I was a perfect model student.
But like, there's a lot of memorization down. And then
Yeah.
later, once you're in the game, you decide what kind of like client, what kind of trainer you want to be or how you want to help people. So then you start digging into specialties and like what you want to be good at.
Right.
So applying macros to yourself, making sure that you're following the actual caloric, like the actual caloric value of your macronutrients. So the big nutrients, the macronutrients that you're taking into your body, which are your carbs, your fats, your proteins.
Carbs, fats, proteins, right?
Yeah. So associatively, when you're connecting these calories, they each have a number they each have a specific caloric number that goes with each one, and then you apply those to your meals. And it's best if you have a scale and you weigh them. And today too, the way technology is, like even back like when I was in college, it wasn't terribly a long time ago, but like even then, it wasn't like even MyFitnessPal was a different app.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
the way that the dieting side of the industry has gone is oh my God, it's developed so freaking much.
Yeah, I think even so in college, I was not in training. I was studying music, doing something completely different, but I was working out all the time. I grew up in exercise and team sports and martial arts and all that. So I was carrying on the stuff that I kind of knew. So when I say common sense earlier, like that's exactly what it was. It was application of the things that I had practiced in my commonalities over time, but then putting the numbers behind them and knowing like, all right, this amount of protein today is worth this many calories out of this total that I'm pulling away from all day long.
Very cool.
And then you hit those, boom, boom, boom. You go day in, day out. I'm not going to say I have never hit a plateau, but when I was doing macros, that was the most streamlined, smooth thing because as soon as I hit a plateau, not on my scale, physically, like I don't feel as like I'm trending in the right direction physically, I would change stuff and I would look it up and try to talk to people. And I think through that is what, by the end of it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do personal training. Because I was helping people while I was doing it to myself. I was, people were like, what do you
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was studying music. And then I was an RA at the dorms. And I was doing Shanti's, we were talking about Insanity and P90X last time.
Yes, in episode 1 of the Two Coaches podcast.
I was
Go check it out.
Definitely. I'm definitely not going to apologize for that pilot podcast. But listening back to it, I know like I was nervous, and I wasn't disingenuous, but I think there's a few times in there when I can hear myself trying to figure out something to say.
Right.
And I know what my thought was initially, and then I'm like, all right, eloquence.
Dude, well, it's like being on a first date. You don't want to. You're like, oh my God, please let me make a moment with this girl.
You're like, I'll have the spaghetti. The spaghetti. Yeah, I don't want the spaghetti.
But the downfall is you have to stare across the table at me.
You're beautiful. It's all right. But that's what I think so. Yeah, I'm not gonna apologize, but for sure, definitely can note some times where I was trying to think about what to say. Like I feel a lot more comfortable now. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I don't know why I just don't do what they.
It's so different when you're doing it. So what did you like about the macro diet? The macro nutrition plan.
For me, the simplicity of it. And the simplicity being, yes, there's a lot of tedious things I had to do to make sure that I had my numbers initially. But once you kind of figure them out, like depending on how specific you want to get, I mean, you can make it super tedious. I think I did my measurements maybe for a week and a half. And then I followed that for months and I would adjust it here and there. If I went out with some friends or whatever, I would put that into the plan and I would break that down and be like, all right, well, here, the popcorn and the icy and all that I had at the movies, I put it in there and like calorically dense, no. I mean, calorically dense, yes. Nutritionally dense, not at all.
Right.
So some days where I left a little hungry, but I was on a plan and I was focused.
Right.
So like what we're talking about today, diets and nutrition plans, meal plans, overall, I think when I was doing macros, it was comfortable, it was doable. I could play around with it if it was flexible. But you can get results off of it for sure.
Absolutely. So macros, flexible, doable, can get results off of them, and it's a really streamlined way to do it.
Real intense too.
Yeah.
But either way, it's a good, well-rounded. I think it's a good, well-rounded, and that's why, like the dietitians, nutritionists, that's one of the meat and potatoes of everything that they build for people.
It is the go-to. Well, the other reason is because it's super flexible. Like when I was doing it, your body doesn't care. At least this is the thinking. Right behind if it fits your macro style, is your body doesn't care and understand or differentiate between a carb from a piece of brown rice or a carb from a cupcake. It just doesn't differentiate at all. So a carb is a carb, a fat is a fat, a protein is a protein, regardless of the source. And so with that, if you can be strategic with what you're doing, then you can eat just about anything on that. Now, that being said, I did have a buddy of mine who put it beautifully. He said, a carb is a carb, and you could eat whatever you want. Your body is going to react and be very different on the inside if you get all your carbs from rice and pasta and clean sources versus all your carbs from cupcakes.
Yeah, man.
You might even be shredded as heck on the outside, but you'll be a dumpster fire on the inside if you don't eat if you don't eat clean enough.
I think there's been plenty of times too where I've attributed like a carb from sweets or whatever to that macro plan.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, I'm not going to have the rice or whatever because I'm eating this, this birthday cake at so-and-so's birthday, right?
Right.
Mentally, though, being more conscious helps a lot. Like, I haven't always been like, I'm trying to figure myself out. But I think for most of my life, I've been trying to be present and like
introspective.
And it's easier said than done, I think, because a lot of times we just react on things. But eating a cupcake, I know very well, like there's stuff going on in my brain that I'm like, that was much more pleasurable than my brown rice and chicken and vegetables.
Oh yeah.
And even macros back then before I really, because I was doing meal preps for a while and stuff, even without cooking them myself. Back then I was still being like inventive and like spicing things up, and
right.
Because I never got bored on it. And some people, it's tricky because I feel like then not having any really background in food and like how to cook and other than from like my mom maybe, I could still stay encouraged and like motivated to stay on it. I feel like if you don't like to cook, or you're not that great at it, or you're not in the right mindset to even practice, you're like, I'm not going to do that. Then you can still do macros, but you might have to get it from other sources. You might have to order them. You might have to.
The other thing that I really liked about the macro plan was the exit strategy with it. So when you go through these different nutrition plans, they have different goals depending on, they have different setups depending on your goals. So if you're trying to lose fat, right, the only thing that's good the only thing that will cause you to lose fat is going into a caloric deficit, meaning that you burn more calories living your life and working out and doing all that stuff than you take in. And so the macros plan is nice because all you got to do when it's time to switch over from that fat loss strategy to a maintenance strategy where you're like, dude, I look great. I see my abs. I'm happy here, and I'm ready to come out of this deficit. All you got to do is tweak your numbers a little bit, and you're out. Yeah. And you don't have to change anything from a habit standpoint. Yeah. You just change the amounts of food that you're already eating.
I think habit plays a big role into any of these things that we're talking about today. Like I know you were talking about keto earlier. Yeah,
you know what? Let's jump into that one because it is probably the one, especially right now. It is probably the one that we hear about the most. It's so popular, and a lot of people will come to me and they'll be like, "Hey, I think I want to switch back to keto because that's when I saw that's what worked for me. Yeah. That's what really worked for me." And I said, "Well, cool. Well, how'd it go when you were on keto?" They're like, "Oh, I lost 20 pounds. Awesome. What happened after keto?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I gained like 20 pounds. I gained it all back." And it's like, okay, well, then keto didn't work for you. And that's where I was on keto for 6 months. Now, first thing I got to say is that keto is an insanely powerful tool. It is really, really, really good. It didn't fit my specific needs, but I did it for 6 months, and that was the most shredded I've ever been. Oh man!
I remember you were taking like before and afters back then.
Yeah, man. And like what I'm doing right now, which a little preview into what's coming up later in the conversation, but what I'm trying to capture some of that magic again while eliminating some of the drawbacks that I personally felt with keto. But keto is really cool because it is simple. You eat a high amount of fat and a high amount of protein and very little carbs. And the idea behind it is it takes you into a state called ketosis. And ketosis is really, really cool because it is the body's method of, there's a lot of biochemistry that goes into it, but your liver produces these things called ketones. Your body burns those for fuel, and you essentially put yourself into fat burning mode all the time. Yeah. And so your body just starts eating its fat a lot, just starts demolishing its fat, and it does work really, really well. And it's easy for people to stick to because you're just like, hey, check it out. This is a carb. This is not a carb. Eat this, not that. And they tend to do really, really well. You still, in order for keto to be successful, I cannot stress this enough. You cannot simply not eat bread and expect to get any kind of results on keto, because again, one of the through lines that you'll see through all these different plans is that you need to be in a caloric deficit if you want to lose fat. If that's your goal, then you have to burn more calories than you're taking in. Otherwise, nothing's going to change. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're doing keto or macros or whatever. But assuming that you're in that deficit, keto is really, really easy to stick with. The reason that I got off of it, the reason that I only stayed on it for 6 months was, one, I have one of the worst sugar addictions that I've personally ever come across. It is deep. It is bedded deep down.
It's deeply rooted into your heart.
Yeah, I have a bad sweet tooth, and so I'll never forget. So now in 2020, there's a lot of different products, and the market has just stepped up and made all these alternatives to desserts and stuff.
In my bag, I have a red velvet protein bar.
That shit didn't exist.
No.
Back when I was doing it.
Even like the vanilla protein I have now tastes different than the vanilla protein I had in college.
Like chalk powder that they put some vanilla.
To be fair,
in.
I was in a like a go get 'em kind of attitude.
Yeah.
So doing macros, I didn't necessarily do keto back then. I think I did more of like a carb cycling kind of thing. But I was definitely like woofing those down with straight water. Boom, throwing. People were like, "Man, what is that?" I'm like, "It's my protein." Filling it up at the water fountain, like all.
What's going on?
Badass.
What's going on, guys?
But I wasn't
filling my protein.
I wasn't happy about it.
Yeah.
You know. Now
you were doing it, but it wasn't an enjoyable experience. Yeah,
like
it was super gross.
This morning I blended it with like a frozen banana and like it was and chocolate like a Fairlife, the dairy free.
Oh my god,
milk.
I'm actually super hungry right now. So thanks,
I was like,
thanks for that.
But thinking about the comparisons, like it did take a little longer.
Yeah.
I had to slice the bananas earlier in the week when I bought them.
Yeah.
But there was like some more work put into it. But I'm a lot happier with that protein shake than in college. In college, I like had to woof them down and like this is what I have to do.
Well, I saw people pouring whole scoops into their mouth like Scarface, just getting it all over and then chugging some water.
Have you ever done that with pre-workout?
I have. I've shotgunned some pre-workout before.
Bad habits.
Yeah.
I've done keto too. I've done keto. I've done it. I've done it legitimately, like followed all the rules, and I've done it dirty.
Dirty keto? That's probably the majority of the keto that I see.
I think a lot of people don't take the time to research it at all. And even asking, like so I said, like they don't really care what you think. Like they ask you about keto, so you start digging into some of the facts, and they're like, "So it's you want me? I should do it?"
Yeah. And if you tell them like, "Hey, listen, here's some of the drawbacks," they're like, I'm gonna go talk to that guy and see if he says it.
You want me to eat steak, bacon wrap steaks?
Yeah. And the thing is that it's gonna work for some people. I had a really bad sweet tooth, and now there's a lot more options out there available to you. But I do remember one time I was craving sugar so bad I wanted something sweet. They have this alcohol sugar that I bought from Amazon. It came in like this green bag. It was an unmarked bag of just this powder. It turned out to be sugar. Well, alcohol sugar. But I remember I mixed that with melted butter. And I stuck it in the freezer because I wanted something sweet, and I was like, I waited for like an hour for it to like solidify a little bit more, to get a little harder. And I was pacing in my kitchen. I was like looking at the freezer. I was so ready to eat this thing, and then I opened it up, and I was like, oh god, finally! And I bit into it, and I was immediately like, it was one of the worst things I've ever bitten into and tried to eat.
It made me think of the movie Dodgeball with the donut.
Yeah.
He's like, go ahead, take it.
Yeah, eat it. It was a pizza.
Oh yeah, it was a pizza.
Yeah, so a couple of the drawbacks with keto, a couple of the pros with keto is, we'll talk about those first, is it is wildly effective for a lot of people, and it can get you results really, really quickly. Yeah. It messes around with your hormones, and that's a very, very powerful tool because of that. The rules are relatively simple. They're easy to understand, albeit rather difficult to stick with for the long term for me personally. Some of the drawbacks to keto that I ran into was, one, that sweet tooth was real. It was a big issue. Yeah. And then the second thing was, I also noticed that while I was working out, I had about 15 minutes or so in me where I could push really, really hard in the workout. Mm-hmm. And then I really bonked. I would just run out of gas. And so for my goals and for what I was doing, it wasn't a good long-term solution for me.
Yeah.
And so I moved away from it. But while I was on it, that was the most shredded I've ever gotten.
I think a lot of it too is like the mentality behind each one of these. Like if you can be real with, we're talking about being conscious earlier and like being more present. But like if you can stop and be very honest with yourself and like stop and think like, all right, I'm going to do this diet, quote unquote, or this, whatever it is, keto, macros, whatever, carb cycling. I'm going to go over a couple more, but if you can be real with yourself and understand like, what's my purpose behind this? Like, am I really trying to be better at health and fitness, or better am I trying, or you have a medical issue that you're trying to take care of, whatever the case may be. Like if you can't stop and figure out what the purpose is behind it, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
It will not last.
Well, and it's also what is your sparking moment? Mm-hmm. And is that something like where you're legitimately like, hey, I want to like what I see in the mirror. I want to like who I see in the mirror. Yeah. Or I need to be around for my grandchildren, and so I'm gonna change this around.
Yeah.
Or is it my ex-husband is gonna be at the wedding with his new lady, and I need to look good? All of those perfectly valid.
Yeah.
But you got to admit, some of those have better longevity.
Yeah.
You mentioned carb cycling.
Yeah, so carb cycling. I was introduced to carb cycling through I did karate when I was younger. No specific diets there. It was like whatever mom made, right? Growing up, getting into college, getting into martial arts, there's you meet all these different kinds of coaches, whatever sport you're playing or being involved in as you go. Like now we're working at the gym here. Right. You go to other gyms, you meet different kind of coaches. So whatever that coach is respectively into. But I had one coach doing MMA, and we did it was boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, no-gi jiu-jitsu, and some wrestling. It was all over the spectrum. So we all went in. There was different class times.
You did all that.
It was a really cool facility.
Are you going to write a book one day? Come on.
I don't like to read.
What? It's not the same thing.
Sorry, but he was like, no, but he was like, all right, if any of you want to get serious about this thing, we're going to have a seminar on Saturday. So I went in there. I didn't pay attention to anything about carb cycling. I can remember him telling, and I was looking for specifics. I was like, what do I do? Yeah. What are the rules? Wrote them down, back to my dorm, wrote those back down, and followed it.
So what is it? What is carb cycling?
And when I was doing it too, it was so cool because the idea behind stacking your carbs on high and low carb days, and fluctuating your workouts to meet those specific long-term goals is really cool because it builds a routine for you. It may be out of the routine you're currently doing or what you like to do regularly, but that was the point back then. I was eating not really specific routinely. I had done macros, right, and I had kind of fallen off of it at that point. I was physically feeling okay about myself. Like I liked the way I looked, but I was trying to increase my performance because at that time I was like, I think I want to fight. I think I want to do this like for real. And all the guys that were fighting for real were doing his carb cycling plan, and they had high and low carb days. And I was like, I need to learn more. So then I just started following the rules and doing exactly what I was supposed to do as far as here's my power output on this day, here's my strength days, right? These different and there's different ways to do it, but I had this routine all of a sudden, and I followed it for a long time, for months. But I wasn't necessarily following what, like I couldn't teach it to somebody else. Yeah, I was just like, oh, I have rice on Tuesdays. I have rice on Tuesdays, and my protein shake has Gatorade in it.
Yeah, and so that's what carb cycling is you pick these days strategically throughout your week where you're going to require more energy, more glycogen around the muscles if you want to get technical, but you need more oomph in the gym. Yeah. And so you stack your carbs on that specific day. And the other days you eat very low. You eat very, very little carbs. And what that does is it triggers that ketogenic effect. It triggers that fat burning mode while still giving you a lot of oomph in the gym.
I don't think at any specific low day back then either was I like, oh, it's a low carb day. Yeah. Like that was just part of the routine. So I think that plays a big role in it too, like whether we're talking about macros, keto, carb cycling, any of the other diets that people are involved. I've done a lot of fad diets too.
Oh, really? Oh my God, we gotta talk about those.
My mom was big on fad diets.
Oh my God, we gotta talk about those. But those are some of my favorite ones. Are you talking about like the cayenne pepper diet and stuff like that?
So like the maple syrup, cayenne pepper diet, cabbage diet.
We'll go to that one later. Oh, we'll save those for last. We'll save those for dessert.
For real, like yeah. None of the. Anyways, but like so doing the carb cycling, built a routine.
Yeah.
And I was like following it very specifically.
Did you get results?
I got great results. My performance increased, and I already had injuries from like previous sports, and they were always aggravated in martial arts. But I was pretending like me training was gonna get, but I wasn't doing any rehab on my shoulders. I wasn't stretching as much. But I was like,
fix it.
but I'm eating so good. My abs are here for the world to see.
Awesome.
Anyways, I retired early.
Yeah. Oh,
I
man.
did. Back then too, they were really big on fasting.
Oh yeah.
Working out fasted actually was what it was. It wasn't really like the same as like intermittent
Doing
fasting.
like fasted cardio.
Yeah, it was just
I've
like
done
wake up, do your road work, do your
Yeah.
Rocky Balboa run, but you don't need anything in your body. Just go.
Crazy. The I've done intermittent fasting. That was actually so I'm doing
That
carb
one-
cycling right
I feel
now.
like that one's coupled with a lot of other things.
Yes. Well, the nice thing about intermittent fasting is it's not really a nutrition plan. It's more of like a
It
protocol.
has to do nutrient timing.
Yeah, it's all about timing. So, intermittent fasting, for those of you who don't know, is you restrict your eating to a specific window throughout the day. The beginner level, if you are just getting into intermittent fasting, typically they put you on a 16-8 split where you fast for 16 hours and you eat for 8 hours. And you can staple this on to literally anything.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing, you're eating the same stuff. You're just eating it in this time. And it has these huge amount of health benefits. It does these great things. It does this great stuff with your hormones. It was one of my favorite ones that I ever did. Take a look at that 16-8. There's more extreme versions of it. There's people who restrict their window to literally an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hour. That's that takes a lot of training. You should never start there. But a 16-8 hour split, that's kind of the entry level. Give it a go and do a little bit of research into that. You could tack it on anything.
I did the hardest from the beginning. I was just
Are you
I was
serious?
just thinking,
Of course you did.
I was just thinking I do that a lot. These shoes I have on, I went and like got measured and got like I'm gonna work on my arches. And she was like, this is the most intense arch and here's the least insole.
Yeah.
I was like, she was like, it's gonna hurt. I said, yeah, just put it in there.
Yeah.
Which is not great. Like that's not the best way to do it, but I
Michael.
realized I've done that a lot. Like intermittent fasting, they were like, you should try to implement it on this, like with like this. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
What's the hardest one?
So how long do you want me not to eat? How long should I not eat?
So with the shoe, you're like, this one feels like a cloud beneath your foot, and this one is a literal spike
In my
your
arch.
in your shoe, and you're like, I'll take the spike,
I want the
please.
spike one. I must train. But I think the mentality behind diets is what is the issue. Because you can
Yeah.
put a nutrition plan in front of somebody, you can put a diet, or you can go over them with a diet plan or what the approach is for. Even if the goal is good, even if that perspective of the goal is like, here's what I want, here's my outlook on it, and you're like, yeah, that's a good healthy outlook. You can still lead them in the wrong way if the mentality's not in the right place.
Right.
So on both pages, for as a trainer or as a client, or if you're doing it on your own at home, like if your brain's not in the right spot, like it's just gonna be like anything else. It's just gonna be there for a little bit, and then you're not gonna be doing it.
Well, that's the problem with especially like, oh my God, you know what? Before we run out of time here, tell me about some fad diets real quick.
My favorite one was
Yeah, if you pick one.
it was the cabbage diet.
The
Basically,
what?
just like a super high sodium salty soup,
Wh-
and it just
you just ate cabbage all the
yeah,
time?
man, and you just would like expel. It was bad.
Is everything?
Yeah, but it's not.
That's so stupid.
It's
So
not good, and
of course you're gonna lose. Of course you're gonna lose weight with that.
And it's so, but what's crazy, like older. Now I'm older, right?
Yeah.
I haven't done that. I did it when I was like a teenager.
That's
my mom was
amazing.
doing it, and we still ate healthy along with that. It
Oh, I
was
better
still,
not.
like,
I
there
better
was-
not talk too much trash about it then,
dude. Yeah, there was still protein sources involved. Like she did it. She didn't do it dangerously.
Right.
But like growing up, I've looked back into it, and it's like people like preach high on the mountains about how successful these fad diets are.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, what? No, I've done those. Those stupid. That's dumb.
Well, the problem with the fad diets, the cayenne pepper diet, the honey diet, the apparently cabbage diet,
Look it up.
which that's a fresh
Google it.
one. That's a fresh one on me. Is the lack of sustainability, and that's what makes any diet or a nutrition plan a bad nutrition plan or a bad diet, is the lack of sustainability.
I think that when we're talking about an actual diet, right? You're born, they cut your feeding tube, boom, you're in it, then you start eating, right? That's
Yeah.
when you start your diet on your own.
Your
you know?
lifelong diet, yeah,
I think it's the one that you can sustain
yeah.
and that you can continue doing
Absolutely.
long term.
It doesn't matter. I don't care what expert you talk to. I don't care what dietitian you recommends what to you. The best diet out there, the best plan out there is going to be the one that you can stick to long term, for the rest of your life, long term.
And you got to be real. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like Bianca and I are doing this challenge.
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, you guys aren't having any drinks? That's crazy. I'm like, that's not that crazy. Like,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
A lot of
But
people don't drink.
And we like to have drinks now and then. I did catch us the other day talking about like, in August when we hit the challenge date, like what we're gonna go on. She was already talking about like going on a long bike ride and like stopping at somewhere to get a drink. And I'm like, nah, COVID cases are going up.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though is the again, we always see this where you start focusing on one area of your life that's good, and then other areas start to improve as well.
Yeah.
The fact that she wants to take a long bike ride to get a drink is a mental shift. That's awesome.
It's more me too. It's more me. Like, I'm the one that likes to have drinks more. Like, I'm like, oh, I got to do my meal prep.
I don't believe you.
I
don't believe you
I'm
at
like,
all.
meal prep. Let's get this whiskey Diet Coke going, this whiskey Coke Zero. And I'm like, grilling out there like, oh yeah.
Oh no, man, you said it like
This
it's a
is
bad
the
thing.
best day ever. But calorically, like, it adds up because then
Yes,
on
it
those
does.
days I'm not keeping track of it.
Well, the calories don't count on Sunday.
And I mean to, right? Like, I mean to keep my eyes on it and like just be mindful of it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to fall off for sure, but just the fact that she's talking about like going on a bike ride, having a drink or whatever, and then like immediately was like, and we're not just gonna stop. By the way, I'm like, this, yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
I know,
you got
I
it,
know.
baby. Yeah. So to let's shotgun these things real quick. Let's go through the good and bad of just the high points.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a nutrition plan right now and you're not sure where to start, this will give you like a comprehensive what might be best for me.
Yeah.
Because regardless of the plan, you need to make sure that one, you're in a caloric deficit. That's why all of these work.
Yeah.
And if you're not in that, then none of these will work. I don't care if you don't have a carb until you're 90 years old. If you're in a caloric surplus, you won't lose any fat. And then figure out what's going to fit best with your personality, your lifestyle, your schedule, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So let's shotgun these bad boys real quick. Macros. Good things. Go.
I'm honestly, the way I like over the years now, if you like numbers and you want to know exactly what's going on, it is the simplest thing.
Beautiful.
And you follow it and you do it because that's what the numbers are. And if something's off, you adjust the numbers a little bit to go in that right direction, and you just keep. I think it's the simplest form of dietary numbers and things to follow. Like, it's just
I love it. Bad things. Go.
bad things. If you, it's very easy to pretend like something's not part of the macros.
Oh, I love that.
It's like, oh, it's Sunday.
That's such a
I'm
good
meal prep
answer.
and I'm having drinks. I'm not going to put this in there.
Yeah.
But if you can build a good habit and put it in your calculator
Right.
or write them down, there's nothing that you wake up on Monday and you're like, what the hell happened this weekend? Oh yeah. Like, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's no guessing.
Love it.
Keto.
Okay, good. It's wildly powerful. It puts you into a fat burning state. It does a lot of cool stuff with your hormones that I think is underrated. And the rules are very, very simple. You eat less, you're in a caloric deficit, and then you don't eat carbs, and that's it.
Negatives.
Yeah, super easy. Negatives: if you have any sort of hankering for carbs, you're screwed.
Hankering.
Yeah, if you enjoy bread, or if you have a sweet tooth and that's something that is important to you, then you are going to really struggle with keto. The other thing for me personally, I found that my performance in the gym did suffer. I had a good 15 minutes or so. 20 would be gracious, but I had a good 15 minutes where I could push really hard, and then after that, bonk city.
That's all in your head.
That's clearly it.
Carb cycling. I think it really does help build a solid routine. If you can couple it, and it doesn't have to be a workout related routine, but if you are trying to be more active, or you're trying to change up your lifestyle, or if you have health issues, you can definitely build a routine that fits, that carb cycling can fit.
Yeah.
And then you apply macros to it as well. It's the numbers are there. It's not something that you have to guess with. And then I think the negatives are, if you are not a routine person and you dive on in into that, it's going to be rough. And I think that's what a lot of people do with any of these. That's a negative though. They're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get it. And they foresee themselves doing it, but they don't actualize it. Like there's no There's no action. It's
Yeah.
just like everything's written down. Here's the plan. I've got it all down. I took my first before picture, and then you're like deleting it 2 weeks later. You're like, that's dumb.
Yeah, that's a really, really good
But
answer on the
routines,
negative. Yeah. If you have a really fluid routine, carb
Fasting?
cycling might not be for you.
I don't think there's a. I don't think. I mean, I guess there can be health negatives depending on it. These are all variable. All these diets are variable.
Yeah.
It's very individualistic.
Intermittent fasting, though, I think intermittent fasting is nice because it's a tack on. You can literally use it with any sort of nutrition plan that you have. Negatives, you might struggle in the very beginning to hold off until your eating window, I guess.
I like intermittent fasting.
It goes
because
away real fast, though.
I use intermittent fasting on clients who give me, and I've done it myself. That's why I know the excuse that you're like, oh, I don't have time for breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, what's your day? You know, whatever your job is, whatever your routine is, let's look at it. Here's the timeline. All right, here's morning for you. It might be 3 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever, but here's your window. We just have to fit it with that.
Bingo.
And that's breakfast. There.
Yeah. So it's wildly flexible. Yeah. I highly recommend at least giving it a shot.
All of these too. I think too many times we put our feet in concrete and we're like, this is what I have to do. This is where I stand now.
Well, the thing is, when people come to us, so that's the breakdown.
Yeah.
That's the breakdown.
Simplest form.
Before and this was a gross oversimplification of all these.
I know we'll probably end up going over, like we're going to have another podcast and it's going to be macros.
Every single one of these is worth its own episode, and we can go into the specifics of it, the science behind it all, because it is really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
But really, when people come to us, when they say, I want a good diet, what most people are asking for is something that they don't have to be tedious with, or that they don't have to track anything on, or something where they don't have to sacrifice anything.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you that plan does not exist. We are bound by biology. We are bound by chemistry. And if you want to lose fat, for example, for this specific example of losing fat, then you will absolutely have to sacrifice here and there. You have to put in the work, and you have to stay consistent. At the end of the day, that is the only thing that works. Any one of these will do.
Sacrifices are good.
Oh yeah. Damn, that was really awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I feel like definitely now, like looking back and like some of the stuff we're trying to follow here on watching the board and stuff, a very brief outline of diets in general. But I think the main focus is, as far as people, if you're listening now, like the diet's going to be whatever you can stick to.
Right.
That's going to allow you to get some results or progress in the direction towards results. That's what's going to help you stick. Whether it's weight loss or muscle building, or if it's feeling better,
right?
That's another big one. People who have poor nutrition or aren't on any quote unquote diet, and then they're sitting there trying to figure out why they have no motivation in the morning. Maybe not to work out, but like just to go to work or to get up and make the bed. Yeah. I'm like, dude, your body is just surviving. It's not
dying on the inside.
And I've been in that state. And I cannot pretend like once I got back on track that I didn't feel better.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, food is the strongest drug you'll put in your body. It's just, we put too much of it in there. Whatever. I'll use that example for later. Whole other thing. Well, very, very cool. So guys, if you have any questions at all about these particular nutrition plans that we talked about, you can always reach out to Coach Michael or myself. Our information is going to be in the description. And then if you liked this podcast, then 1, subscribe, and 2, share us around. Go share it with your people. Next week, we're going to be talking about some more cool stuff, and we're definitely going to be breaking down these individual components into their own episode, because each one of them deserves its own little segment. Cool.
This thing's gonna be good. I'm excited. I know our friends are like, can't wait to listen, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course you can't wait. You're my friend.
You're super biased. What about Jeremy from up the road?
I think the more I like, even just talking, like we have some badass conversations with members here in the gym. Yeah. I have great conversations with my clients, especially now with things going on in the world, and I feel like this, as we progress into this thing, it's gonna get clearer. It's gonna be more fun, and we'll be able to help each other as well as anybody else that's.
I hope it doesn't get too much more fun, because I'm already having a blast, and I try to only have a certain amount of fun each day.
You're dumb.
It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next time. If you like what you hear, go and subscribe. If you think other people would benefit from what we're talking about, go ahead and share this podcast around, and we'll see you next week. I just winked at you.